Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to this session on how we can move from stress to smiles. There is enough to stress us these days due to COVID 19. Uh, so, today in the session, we are going to have a basic understanding of stress, what it is, what is the impact of stress on our body and on our mind, how to develop resilience, and a mindset that can begin to change our life. It is the talk is discussion is divided into four sections. What is stress? What causes stress? How can we use mindfulness to become resilient? The impact and choosing useful mental models. Uh, Before we begin, I'd like to take a minute to introduce myself. My name is Ashish, and I live in Gurgaon with my mother, wife, and two lovely daughters. I work for Limra Loma Global. It's the largest association of life insurance and financial services companies in the world. It has got more than 1,500 members across 70 countries, and I look after their training and consulting in India. Prior to joining Limra Loma, I worked with in the corporate sector with companies like Tata AIG, Future Generali, Marsh, HCL Group, and a startup funded by the Dabur family. About 2 years back, I started out as mindfulness trainer, and I work actively with the corporates in training the employees on a wide variety of topics, which include mindfulness, stress management, etc. I am routinely invited by universities, colleges, insurance companies, and insurance brokers like Futurisk to speak to their employees and to their clients. I am grateful to Futurisk for providing me this opportunity to address all of you today. Before we get going, a few ground rules. Please keep a pen and paper ready, handy, to take down any questions that you may have. We will be taking questions towards the end of the session. Also, I would prefer if you could log in through a desktop or laptop. There is an experiential session we will have of mindfulness around after about 20-30 minutes. And also, if you can be in a room where you're not disturbed, or at least if you can put out a post-it that you are not to be disturbed for next 50 to 60 minutes, that would be ideal. So, with that backdrop, let's discuss what is stress. And this word has got a very negative connotation. Most of the times, when we think of stress, we think it is very negative and very bad. But what if I were to tell you that not all stress is bad? Uh, what we refer to as bad is chronic stress, but then there is acute stress and stress which is okay. It is in fact stress which has led to survival of human beings over the last 6 million years. If we would not have had stress, we would have been extinct as a species. So, about when human beings used to live in jungles and they would see a wild animal, the body would trigger, actions which would, due to which the heart rate would increase, breathing would quicken, muscles would tighten, blood pressure would rise, and the person becomes ready to either fight or run away from the situation. This is how we protected ourselves and we survived for millions of years. But today, the situation has changed. Today, we don't live in jungles, but our brain continues to behave because of the many millions of years of conditioning as if we live in jungles. So, we're going to talk and see how the neuroscience behind stress a little bit further down in the session. Let's move on. There are many causes of stress, the many apparent causes of stress. It could be separation or bereavement. People are worried about their money. Some businesses are facing at bankruptcy. Stock markets have crashed. Sales are down. There is record unemployment. And even when people are in jobs, there are no increments or there are salary cuts, no promotions, increments. the relationship is another major source of stress, whether it is amongst the spouses or parent, children, uh, business, career. Health is another source of stress. These days, people are stressed because they are not getting access to proper health care. People call for ambulances. Ambulances don't arrive for 12 hours. People are not getting beds in the hospital, and there are many other challenges which people are facing. Then people are stressed about what the government is doing. There is so much of violence which is happening around us. We are seeing people are depressed and they are hurting and they are fighting and killing people. So a lot of stress that causes. And then there is too much to do. So almost everybody I know in the corporate sector, they say, Ashish, after the lockdown has happened, we are working longer hours. Even though there is no commute, we are working remotely. We are at home, but we are working longer hours. So there's just too much that needs to be done, and there is dissatisfaction where we are in our life. But the only reason we feel stress is because these are the apparent reasons, but the main reason we feel stressed is because our thinking is this is how the things should be. That should be is a major cause of stress. Our thinking of so government should not have done lockdown, or government should not do unlockdown, or why is my spouse should not be doing this, or my boss should not be doing this, or my client should not be doing this. There are many reasons that we get very stressed about, thinking this is how it should be. And forever in our life, we are trying to control the other people or the situations which are outside us, rather than realizing that actually there is very little in control outside us. What is there which can be controlled is inside us. And the minute we start focusing on what we can do, we become proactive and our influence goes up. The minute we are focused on what is outside our control, what the government is doing or what's happening in the economy, we are operating in the circle of concern. And as long as we are operating in the circle of concern, our influence reduces, our negative energy is there, and we are able to do less and less. The more we are focused on what is it that I can do in this situation, the more our mind responds and gives us options to think like that. So I would like to share that mind is a very good servant, but a very bad master. So once we can start becoming mindful and observing what is happening in our life, our life starts changing for the better. So normally there is a trigger. The trigger could be in any form. Somebody saying something to us, COVID-19 happening, stock market crashing, boss saying something to us, or there could be anything. And the minute it happens is, we immediately react. So I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was telling me that the minute somebody says something to her, and she would immediately retort. But that's how we have got used to responding to situations in our life. But what we need to realize is that there is a option between situation and reaction, where we can pay attention to what is happening to us by pausing a little bit. Most of us would have had situations in our life where we have later regretted saying or doing something to some people, either us or someone we know. Definitely there are situations, but if we pause and pay attention to what is going on, what is it I am feeling, and what am I about to do, then whenever the trigger is happening, we become aware, and then we choose what is it that I can do, whether I need to shout back, whether I need to stay calm or walk away. Many people think that being mindful makes you a vegetable, it makes you passive, and you can't shout or get angry with someone. But that is not true. Being mindful just means you are conscious of what you're doing, you're mindful, you are aware of what you're doing. And after, in that situation, if you think shouting is the best option, feel free to shout. But do that consciously, and that is where you will have the freedom. I did this session in a the corporate, and one of the persons asked me that, Ashish, what if I pause? Will the other person not think that he or she has got an upper hand over me? And I said to that person that we don't realize how quickly do we respond. Our reaction is in one fifth of a second. That is how much time we take to react to situations which we perceive as threatening. Even if we pause for a second, we would realize that there are choices that we can exercise in that moment without even the other person realizing that we have paused for a second, thought through our response, and then we are giving a response to that person. So we can always take that opportunity to pause for a minute and act consciously. That's where a lot of things in our life start changing. I was in another company where I did this session. After the session, one young employee came and he was looking very happy. And I asked him, what's the reason? Did you really like what happened? He says, yes, sir. I liked about your sharing about pausing. And I said, why? He said he shared with me that I have got married recently, and every day, I and both I and my wife work, and we get back home around 7 p.m. And from 7 to around 8:30 daily there is a the fight between us. She says something and I say something back to her, and I say something and she retorts back. But now I have realized the power of pausing, and now when she says something to me, I'll pause and not react and say something nasty immediately after that. So like that, there are many situations in our life where we can pause and take conscious decisions. But talking about mind, talking like swimming can't be learned by reading or talking about it. Mindfulness cannot be learned by just hearing about it. So I would invite you for a 10-minute practice of mindfulness where we will observe our breath, and we will see how we can start paying attention and acting consciously. So I will urge you to sit comfortably and keep your back and neck in a straight line. Sit comfortably in any posture that suits you. Keep your mouth and eyes closed. Chin parallel to the ground. And focus your attention, entire attention, on the area at the entrance of the nostrils. Focus your entire attention at the area at the entrance of the nostrils, and remain alert of every breath that comes in and every breath that goes out. Normal breath, natural breath, as it is. If it is long, it is long. If it is short, it is short. Passing through left nostril, left nostril, passing through right nostril, right nostril, or through both the nostrils. Just remain aware, do nothing. Just remain aware of every breath coming in, every breath going out. Be alert, be attentive, be vigilant. Remain alert, attentive, and vigilant. Constantly aware of the breath, the incoming breath, the outgoing breath, the incoming breath, outgoing breath. Keep your attention steadfastly fixed on the area at the entrance of the nostrils. Like a gatekeeper, be aware of every breath entering the nostril, aware of every breath moving out of the nostril. Like a watchman, be aware of every breath entering the nostril, aware of every breath moving out of the nostril. Incoming breath, outgoing breath, natural breath, pure breath, nothing but the breath. As we come to the end of this practice, take a full, deep breath, taking in all the energy of this practice. And when you are ready, open your eyes and return your attention to the present moment. As you become fully alert and awake, consider setting the intention that this practice of building awareness will benefit everyone you come in contact with today. So, friends, what we just did was practicing mindfulness, which helps us build our ability to hold attention to the present moment and become aware of our thoughts, emotions, feelings, and sensations. And when we are aware of our thoughts and feelings, then when we can act out of a space consciously rather than doing things mindlessly or automatically. We will move on to understand the impact stress has on our body and mind. When we feel stressed, our body is flooded with adrenaline and cortisol, and the hormones that protected us from threats. Our logical brain temporarily shuts down and we lose the ability to solve the problems, make decisions, and think rationally. That is why it is said that we shouldn't take any decision, important decision, when we are stressed. Let me explain this by way of a diagram. Our eyes are very important source of inputs to our brain. 70% of the inputs to our brain are given by the eyes. Whatever data that eyes capture goes to a center in our brain which is called thalamus, and from thalamus it travels to occipital lobe for processing, and then the information comes back to amygdala for taking action. But when the mind perceives there is a threat, and all this happens in a matter of fraction of milliseconds, but when the mind perceives there is a threat, there is a shortcut which takes place, and there is processing of information which takes place in occipital lobe does not take place. There is a shortcut which is there from thalamus to amygdala, and the information travels directly, and amygdala acts. That is why we act like we do when we face threats. But the fact is, out of the 66 million years or 60 lakh years that human beings have been around, 59 lakh 90,000 years we have lived in jungles, and 10,000 years we have started settling down. But when we look back at 10,000 years looks like a lot of time, a long period of time. But when we look at it from the point of evolution, 10,000 years compared to 6 million years is a very small fraction. And our mind behaves as if we still live in jungles. Today, we are safe, nobody is coming to eat us, but we still believe, or behave as if we have seen a lion or a bear. Those earlier when we used to live in the jungles, the threat used to be acute in nature, so we might see a lion, and the lion will go away. But today that lion or bear or snake has been replaced by a boss or an agri customer or a spouse or a relative, anybody else, and this threat does not go away. We have to live with that threat, and that is what causes a lot of damage to our body, because our body is in a constant state of threat. And then we start becoming having low energy, start having headaches, there is aches, pains, tense muscles, chest pain, insomnia, cold, infection. A lot of things happen because of this chronic stress, because we are constantly perceiving threat coming to us. And remember, it is a perception, it may not be real. The minute we perceive the threat, so if I see somebody walking by and I think that person is harmful to me, even though that person is not going to harm me, just my thinking that this person may potentially cause harm to me will trigger the same symptoms of stress. That is why being mindful is very, very important and is proven to reduce stress. Emotionally also, we become agitated, overwhelmed, find it difficult to relax, concentrate, low self-esteem, and we become depressed and start avoiding other people. These are some of the cognitive impacts of stress. So now let us become aware and choose how we want to behave, whether have our mind full of everything that is going around us, or be mindful. That's a choice we need to make. And in that context, I would like to share a story with you of a very poor farmer who used to live in Central Europe, in a village in Central Europe somewhere. And in that village, they used to have horses for farming. But this farmer was so poor that he could not even afford a horse. He had land, but he had no horse to till the land. With great difficulty, he borrowed some money and bought a horse. And one day, and he started farming with that horse till one day when the horse ran away into the nearby jungle. And the neighbors of the farmer came, and said, "This is something which is very bad that has happened." And the farmer was wise. He said, "Good thing, bad thing, who knows?" The horse runs away into the jungle, and there he made friends with 12 more horses. And then he returns back to the village to the farmer. And now farmer has 13 horses, one the original one and 12 new horses. The neighbors of the farmer come to him and they say, "Oh, this is something which is very good that has happened to you. Earlier you did not have a horse, then you had a horse, then even that ran away, and now you have 13 horses." The wise man said, "Good thing, bad thing, who knows?" These horses which came were wild horses, and one day when the farmer's son was trying to tame them, and he was riding to tame them, he fell down and broke his leg. So the neighbors of the farmer come and once again say, "Oh, this is something which is so bad. Your son was young. Your son is so young, and now he has broken his leg. Who is going to marry him? This is something which is very bad." And the farmer said, "Good thing, bad thing, who knows?" And then, after some time, the kingdom in which the farmer's village was went on war with the neighboring kingdom, and the king sent the army to recruit all able bodied men. The army came to the village, they recruited every able bodied man and went away, and the neighbors came crying to the old farmer, saying, "Oh, our sons have all been taken away to the war. We now don't know whether we will get to see them ever again. Your son, you are lucky that your son is there with you. It's a very good thing that has happened." And the farmer again said, "Good thing, bad thing, who knows?" So, friends, you would have got the message now that many times in our lives, when something bad happens to us, we think it is something which is very drastic, but after some time, when we look back at the event, we realize that possibly it was the best thing to happen to us. So when we take a myopic view of things, we see things to be good or bad, but in the long term, things always turn out to be better. That's the faith we need to have, that's the mental model we need to have, and we need to accept things as they are. Then I would like to share another story with you about of a very poor farmer who used to live in a village. He was very poor but very happy. He was singing and working in his farms when the king of the kingdom passed by. And he saw this poor farmer and he was wondering to himself, this poor guy who does not even have a proper shirt on his back is so happy and working, singing and working. And, I'm the king of the kingdom, but I have so many worries. So in the evening, when he reached back the palace, he summoned the king, his minister, and told him about this incident. And the minister said, "My lord, the farmer is happy because he's not a member of the 99 Gold Coins Club." And the king asked, "Mr. Minister, what is this 99 Gold Coins Club?" So rather than answering the king, the minister requested for 99 gold coins to be issued to him from the treasury. The king promptly issued the instruction, and next day in the morning, king and the minister go and place these 99 gold coins in front of the farmer's door while it was still dark. In the morning, when the farmer got up, he opens the door, comes out, and he finds these 99 gold coins. His initial reaction was of disbelief and being overjoyed, and he sat down to count the gold coins. 1, 2, 10, 20, 50, 90. 95, 96, 97, 98, 99. And he wondered, it stopped at 99. And he couldn't believe himself. And then, he asked his wife to count the gold coins. They again come to 99. His son counts it, again come to 99. And the farmer's joy turns into disbelief, frustration, and anger. He says, who is this idiot who has given me 99 gold coins? And he decides that, I need to now work very, very hard to earn money to buy that 100th gold coin. And he starts working laboriously. They cut down the expenses in the family. They became miserable, and after some time, the farmer once again opens the this packet which had gold coins and starts counting it. And then he realizes it's rather than 99 becoming 100, 99 has become 97. And he became very wild and furious and asked his wife, what happened? And the wife says, "Oh, I thought these coins are there. They are anyway. You're not earning enough to make it 100. So let me at least go in the meanwhile go and shop." So I did some shopping, and the farmer got very furious. And then after some time, he realizes that his son also spends two gold coins, and these 97 have become 95. And he shouts at his son and slaps him. And overall, the family in 6 months' times becomes very, very miserable. And the minister gets the king to come and visit the village where this farmer lives. And the king sees for himself how this farmer has become so miserable. And friends, that is the story of most of us. We have got more blessings in our lives rather than lack what is lacking. But we get so focused on what is lacking in our life, and we make our lives and the lives of those around us so miserable. Whether it is in terms of possessions, rather than enjoying what we have, we are always hankering for what we don't have. In terms of relationships, with our colleagues, friends, or relatives, spouses, even though they may have seven, eight, nine things good out of 10, that one thing which is not good about them, our entire energy gets focused on what characteristic is lacking. And we make our relationships miserable. uh, that if 9 out of 10 things are going right, and the one thing which is going wrong does not take 10% of our mind space, it takes 90% of our mind space, and we make our lives miserable. The message, as you would have understood, is to be happy. And when we are in a state of happiness and joy, that is where many more things start going right in our lives. And I'll bring my talk to a close with this one last thing. Uh, you know, we can choose to be happy irrespective of the state of things which is around us. Most of the times, we become happy when things are going our way, and we become unhappy when things are not going our way. And that way, we give the control of our happiness to things and people and events which is outside us. Uh, Rather, let's be mindful and start taking control of what is inside us. And once we start taking control of our emotions, of our thoughts, we find that our external world also starts manifesting what we desire. At this stage, I will request you to all join me in laughing. Laughing is a great way to bust stress, and the beauty of laughter is it's also a great way to become mindful, because when we are laughing, the mind cannot hold two thoughts. You can't be laughing and thinking of something else. Where you can try this out. When we are laughing, it's very difficult to think of anything else. And another good thing about laughing is that uh, it the mind does not know the difference between a real laughter and fake laughter. And whenever we laugh, even without a reason, the body feels as good as if we are laughing with a real reason. So I'll laugh. I don't think you can see me, but you can try and imitate and laugh along with me. Let's start by posing our hands in the namaste position and start laughing. Another good way to do is the milkshake laughter, where you assume you have got two glasses of milkshake in your hand and you pour from one glass to the other glass, and after some time you can drink it. Then there is cell phone laughter, where you can imagine you are talking to a friend and laughing on the phone. Uh, you can alternate between laughing ho 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 and ha ha ha, and observe where does the breath come from. You will find when you're laughing ho ho ho, it is the breath is coming from your belly, and when you're laughing ha ha ha, the breath is coming from your chest. Ho 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 ho, ha 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 ha, ho 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 ho, ha 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 ha. Thank you, friends. I hope I have been able to move you from stress to smiles. That brings us to the close of this session. I will take off the presentation, and we are open to take any questions or comments from you now.